One late afternoon at Morrison's grocery, an exhausted single mother stood at the checkout counter desperately counting her last few coins to buy formula for her sick baby daughter. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough to pay. Just as she was about to put the item back, a wealthy man stepped forward from behind and offered to cover the remaining amount. However, she firmly refused his help out of pride. What she didn't know was that this man wasn't just any stranger, he was someone who would change her life forever. Before we dive deeper into this story, let us know where you're watching from and don't forget to hype and subscribe for more heartwarming stories every day. Late afternoon settled over Morrison's grocery with a tired kind of light. The fluorescent bulbs inside hummed softly, washing the aisles in a pale brightness that made the oranges look too orange and the bread too white. The floor smelled faintly of bleach and coffee. A cart squeaked every few seconds somewhere beyond the cereal. People stood in lines with that after-work quiet, shoulders rounded, eyes on their phones, coupon folders flapping like small wings. Layla Johnson held her place at Register 7 and kept one hand steady on the handle of the stroller. Her daughter Naomi, 2 years old, dozed lightly with flushed cheeks and a tiny wheeze that sounded like someone sighing through a straw. A knit hat covered the child's curls. The hat had a pom-pom that used to be fluffier, now it was more like a worn cotton ball. Every few breaths, Naomi's cough shook her small body, and Layla laid a palm over her chest as if she could press the illness back down. 1547, the cashier said. The young woman's name tag read Mara. She said the number the way people say a date, routine and empty. Layla opened her wallet and spread the bills with her thumb. Ones, all ones. 2 5 she had counted 3 times before leaving the apartment had turned into soft wrinkled singles at the bottom of her bag. She must have used them earlier in the week and forgotten. She licked her lower lip and counted again. $12.66. She found 2 quarters, then 1 dime, 5 pennies. She lined them up, the coins bright against the black conveyor belt. "Ma'am," Mara said, eyes already sliding toward the line growing behind. Layla offered a small apologetic smile and pushed the coins forward. "I'm just almost there." A man in a baseball cap behind her shifted his weight and sighed. Someone farther back whispered, "Always happens when you're in a hurry." The store air felt suddenly cooler against Layla's neck. She reached into the zippered pocket of her purse. Receipts. A button. Nothing else. She smoothed the front of her thrifted coat, as if she could press more money out of the lining. She pressed a finger to the screen of her phone, pretending to check something, but really she was buying time, searching her mind for a miracle that would not come. "I've got 12.66, she said, voice gentle, careful. "Could you ring up just the formula? I'll come back for the rest." She pushed 2 other items aside, a bundle of discounted bananas and a box of tissues. Mara's eyes flicked to the formula can. $15.47. Her lips pressed flat. "We can't do partial payment," she said. "It's either the full amount or..." She paused as if the rest went without saying. Layla nodded. "Right. Of course." Her throat felt dry. She slid her fingers along the rim of the stroller, grounding herself on cool plastic. She glanced at Naomi, who stirred and coughed. The sound was small and serious. "Please," she thought, "just a few dollars." She pictured the last ounces of powder at home, the way she had shaken the can and heard it rattle like sand in a jar. "It's okay," Layla said softly. I'll put it back." The words left a taste in her mouth like metal. She lifted the can off the belt. The label showed a smiling baby with full cheeks and clear eyes. The picture felt like someone else's dream. "Ma'am, we can hold it behind the counter if..." Mara began, but stopped when the man behind Layla stepped closer. "I've got it," he said, already reaching for his wallet. The man wore a navy suit that fit well, the fabric clean and quietly expensive. His tie was gray with a small pattern, the kind you don't notice unless you're up close. His hair showed threads of silver at the temples, neat as if a careful hand had placed each one. He looked about mid-40s, tall, calm. His voice was low enough that it didn't push. He didn't smile, he simply spoke like he would speak to a neighbor over a fence. "I'll cover the difference," he said. "It's no trouble." Layla's spine straightened before she even knew it, as if a string had pulled from the base of her neck. Heat rose in her cheeks. She could feel the eyes in the line prick against her back like static. She wanted to be anywhere but here. She wanted to stand on a quiet porch at dusk and breathe in warm air and be nobody's story. "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "But thank you." He paused as if listening for the right next step. "It's just $3, he said. His hand hovered over his wallet, not quite opening it. "I'd be glad to." "I said no," she repeated, more firmly, hearing too much sharpness in it, and smoothing it with a calmer tone. "I appreciate it, but no, I can't accept that." Something flickered across his face, concern, not offense. He nodded. He didn't push. Instead he looked at Naomi, and what showed in his eyes then was not pity. It was recognition, like seeing a photograph you thought you'd lost and remembering every detail that came with it. Behind them, the line shuffled. A woman with a toddler on her hip muttered, "Let him help you, honey," not unkindly but like advice you don't want to taste. Layla put the can back on the belt for the cashier to void, fingers careful, the way you set down a fragile thing. "I'll come back," she said, though she didn't know when. Mara canceled the item, her nails clicking lightly on the keys. "Next," she called, already reaching for the plastic divider. The line moved forward with relief. Layla lifted the stroller handle. The wheels bumped over the metal lip at the end of the checkout with a small clack. She kept her eyes on the gray floor tiles as she turned away, because looking anyone in the face would break something inside her. As she passed the suited man, she felt him step aside to give her space. He kept his hands by his sides, not reaching. "If you change your mind," he said quietly, "I'll be right here." She didn't answer. At the automatic doors the evening wind pushed in against her knees. "Mommy," Naomi murmured, half dreaming. "Cold, I know baby," Layla whispered, pulling the knit blanket up higher under her chin. Out in the parking lot, the sky hung low and pale, the color of a spoon's back. A bite of early spring still lived in the air, even though the calendar claimed it was warmer now. She tucked her chin and pushed the stroller into the wind. At the bus stop, the bench felt like it had been made of ice. Layla stood instead, shifting from foot to keep her blood moving. A delivery truck coughed past, and the smell of diesel rolled in and faded. She checked the schedule taped to the pole, Route 12, every 20 minutes, then looked down the street where the bus would appear, 2 blocks away, turning the corner near the pharmacy. Traffic lights changed from red to green and back again with unhurried patience. She rocked the stroller gently. Naomi's cough came again, then a slow exhale that sounded like a paper bag being pressed flat. Layla touched her daughter's forehead, warm, not burning, but warm enough to worry. She swallowed and looked back at the store's doors. The glass reflected the parking lot lights and the faint outline of a man's figure in a suit, the shape indistinct until the doors opened, and he stepped out. He had no grocery bag, he had no coat. He walked toward the bus stop with a kind of careful speed, as if he wanted to arrive soon but not startle anyone by hurrying. The wind touched his tie and set it moving. Layla squared her shoulders. "Hi," he said, when he was close enough to be heard without raising his voice. He kept a respectful distance, about as far as 2 people stand when they are neighbors but not friends. "It's colder than I thought," he added, almost to himself. She gave a small nod, eyes on the street. The bus did not appear. "I'm sorry about inside," he said after a moment. "I should have asked first. Sometimes help works better when it comes the way a person can accept it." Layla almost smiled at that. "Almost. It's not your fault," she said, keeping her voice even. "People mean well." She paused. "Sometimes meaning well is the whole thing." He nodded. The wind touched their faces and carried the faint smell of fried chicken from the deli across the road. A car door slammed somewhere behind them. "I can give you a ride," he said, "if you'd like, no strings. I'm headed downtown but I can go wherever you need." "I can't," Layla said. "But thank you. May I ask why?" His tone was calm. He did not sound like a man used to hearing no, he sounded like a man willing to learn it. She looked at him then. Up close, she saw the faint tiredness around his eyes, the kind that belongs to grief rather than to work. He held her gaze without challenging it. "Because I don't know you," she said, gentle but firm, "because I'm with my child. Because I've learned that sometimes the cost of a favor comes due later." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." A small silence sat between them, not uncomfortable, just present. He glanced at Naomi. "She doesn't feel well." "No," Layla said, "but she will." She smoothed the blanket again. "She will." "My name is Marcus," he said. "Marcus Vance." He said it not like a man announcing himself to a room but like a man placing his name quietly on a table and stepping back. "If the bus is late and you change your mind, I'll wait over there." He gestured to a clean black sedan parked a few spaces away, windows down, lights on. "You can see me the whole time." "Thank you," Layla said, "for asking like that." He gave a brief nod, as if to say "You're welcome and I hear you at once," and returned to his car. He sat with the door open, one foot on the ground, hands resting on the wheel, head turned toward the street where the bus would come. He did as he promised, lights on, a visible presence, not hovering. The bus finally appeared, lumbering around the corner with a breath of diesel and a squeal of brakes. The driver, a woman with a neat bun and a coffee in a metal cup, tilted the bus toward the curb. The doors folded open with that soft exhale that always sounds like a tired person giving in. Marcus stood without moving closer. Layla lifted the stroller up the small ramp, thanked the driver, and took the open spot near the front. Through the glass, as the bus pulled away, she saw the man in the suit lift his hand once in a simple, almost shy wave. She raised her hand too, an automatic polite reply, and then the bus turned and he was gone. City blocks slid by, a laundromat with fogged windows and a string of blue lights, a barber shop with two men in capes laughing at a joke on the TV, an empty lot where grass pushed up between cracked concrete like small insistences. A boy with a red backpack ran, shouting, "Hold it," and the driver did, letting him hop on breathless and grateful. Layla watched the world pass and measured the trip in ordinary pieces she trusted. At Jefferson, Mrs. Patel would be closing her small shop. At Spruce, the streetlight blinked for too long before deciding to turn green. At 12th, a tiny church kept its door open even when no one sat in the pews. These markers made the city feel like a place she knew, even on a day when she felt like a stranger inside her own life. She touched Naomi's cheek again, still warm. She let the tips of her fingers press into her own palm until the mild pain steadied her. She thought of the day Naomi was born, the smell of antiseptic and the nurse's calm hands, the weight of a new body that fit perfectly against her. She remembered the way the hospital room had felt too quiet after everyone left, the night sounds big and hollow until Naomi stirred and the world shrank to the circle of a mother's breath and a child's. She had promised then, pressing her lips to that soft forehead, that she would never let her child feel alone. That promise lived in her now like a second heartbeat. At Maple and 3rd, she pulled the cord. The driver gave a little nod in the mirror and braked with care. The bus let them out near the corner store with the cracked bell. Wind met them again at the curb, a simple cold that made the eyes water. She tucked the blanket tighter and walked. Her building stood half a block down, a narrow 4-story with a stoop that kept a memory of warmth from the day's sun. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage and an old mop. Someone's radio played quietly behind a door left ajar. The elevator had been out so long that everyone stopped noticing the sign. Layla lifted the stroller one step at a time, balancing the weight with her hip. At the 3rd-floor landing, Mr. Alvarez opened his door just enough to wave. "You need help, Miss Layla." "I've got it, thank you," she answered, breath a little short but smiling. He nodded, the chain leaning across the gap like a thin line of gold, and let the door fall shut. Inside the apartment, warmth had a tired feel. The radiator clanked now and then, like a person clearing a throat. The kitchen light buzzed. A round table took up more room than it should, its wood scarred with use and clean anyway. Above the sink, a window let in the last of the day and a slice of the opposite brick wall. Layla eased Naomi out of the stroller and onto the soft couch. She checked her forehead again, no worse, no better, and kissed her temple. "Back in a minute, Ladybug," she whispered. The child's eyelashes shivered but did not open. In the cupboard, the can of formula waited on the shelf like a test. She lifted it down and shook it. The sound was thin. She tapped the lid with her fingernail. Dust of powder rose and settled. She measured with steady hands, then added water, then added more water than the label instructed. The liquid turned milky, then a little clearer than it should be. She did not look at the number on the side of the measuring cup because it was easier to watch the swirl. She warmed the bottle in a mug of hot water instead of the microwave. The microwave sometimes heated unevenly, and tonight she wanted to control every small thing she could. While she waited, a dull drip sounded from somewhere above. She glanced up. The ceiling had a stain like a continent on a children's globe. The drip found the pail she kept beneath it with a practiced plink. A draft came through the window frame. She stuffed the folded towel tighter against the sill. Outside, someone laughed and then coughed. The laugh hung on the air a moment longer than the cough, then slipped away. The bottle felt warm against her wrist. She carried it to the couch and gathered Naomi into her lap. The child turned toward the smell, mouth opening on reflex. "There we go," Layla murmured, guiding the nipple to her lips. Naomi sucked greedily, then paused to cough, then went back to the business of being a child who believes food will always appear. Layla watched her daughter drink and counted the ounces by the settling of the liquid. She felt the guilt settle too, thin and light and still heavy somehow. "Tomorrow," she whispered, though to whom she wasn't sure. "Tomorrow I'll fix it." Naomi's breathing evened. A bubble of air rose and escaped with a small burp that made them both smile out of habit. Layla set the bottle on the table and wiped the child's mouth with the edge of the blanket. She rocked her on her lap, a rhythm older than words. Her own body remembered the pattern even when her mind felt like a box of broken things. On the table, the stack of bills waited. The electric bill, the rent reminder, the envelope from the clinic. She placed a palm over them as if to make them less loud. She would open them after she put Naomi down. She would open them when she felt strong. She would open them. A gust of wind pressed against the window and the loose pane buzzed. The overhead light flickered once, twice, and held. The pail took another drip. A siren somewhere far away slid past like a red ribbon pulled through fingers. In her mind, the grocery store replayed in small pieces, the can on the belt, the sound of coins, the cashier's hands, the man in the suit saying, "I'll cover the difference," as if it were a simple thing. The way he had stepped back when she said no, the wave he had given when the bus door closed. She did not feel anger at him. She felt something quieter, something closer to sadness, that life had positioned her across from a stranger and made them practice a ritual neither of them wanted, one person offering, the other person refusing, both of them carrying away a heaviness that didn't belong to either alone. She thought of his eyes when he looked at Naomi. There had been a shadow in them, a shadow she recognized from faces in waiting rooms and quiet hallways. Grief has a way of folding into the edges of a person's gaze and staying there even when they smile. She wondered who he had lost. She wondered if the name still lived in his mouth sometimes when he woke. When Naomi's breathing became slow and deep, Layla eased her down onto the couch cushions and tucked the blanket up to her chin. She turned off the overhead light and left the small lamp on the table glowing soft as a candle. The lamp's shade wore a patch of brown where it had once leaned too close to a bulb. In that warm circle, her child's face looked gentler, the fever blush less fierce. Layla went to the sink and washed the bottle. The water ran too hot, then too cold, then right. Steam rose and fogged the edge of the window. She set the bottle upside down on a dish towel like a small white tower. She wiped the counter with wide, slow circles, though it was already clean. Sometimes the body needs a job when the mind is too full. She took off her coat and hung it on the back of a chair. She rubbed the place on her shoulder where the strap always cut. She sat at last in the second-hand armchair by the window. The fabric was a little threadbare in the shape of someone else's life. She curled her feet under her and pulled the old Afghan over her knees. The Afghan was made of squares, mustard, teal, cream, each one a different story of hands and time. It smelled faintly of laundry soap and the past. From her purse, she took the little notebook she kept for lists and the stub of a pencil. She wrote formula on the first line. She wrote tissues on the second. She added bananas and drew a small star next to it because Naomi loved them when her cough quieted. She paused, the pencil tip resting on the paper. On the next line she wrote pride, then stared at it, surprised to see the word there. After a moment, she erased it. The paper kept a gray ghost of the letters. She turned the page. One floor above, someone moved a chair. Pipes clanked inside the wall like an old orchestra tuning up. In the distance, a train called out to its tracks. The apartment settled around her like a coat you wear because it is the one you have. It did not fit perfectly, it kept her warm anyway. She thought of what she would say if she saw the man from the store again. Thank you did not feel like the right words. I'm okay didn't either. Maybe she would not say anything. Maybe a nod would be enough. Maybe the only language people like them shared was the brief look two strangers give each other in hard places that says, "I see it, I'm walking with it too." Her phone buzzed once with a text that wasn't urgent. She set it face down. She listened to her daughter breathe. She counted the breaths until she lost the number and started again, the way you sometimes do when you're trying to fall asleep. Outside, a light rain began, gentle as tapping fingers. Water found the crack in the window frame and made a silver trail down the glass. Streetlight turned the drops into small bright beads before they fell. A distant laugh rose from the sidewalk and then dissolved into the weather. Somewhere a door closed. Somewhere a kettle whistled. The world carried on in ordinary ways. Layla stood, crossed to the couch, and eased herself down beside Naomi, careful not to jostle her. She slipped her hand under the child's small back and drew her closer, the way she used to when Naomi was new and the world felt too big. The blanket covered them both. She could feel the little heart